Welcome back to Lucid Living, and if this is your first time, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to have you aboard. My name is Andrew Larkin. I'm an actor, model, performer, storyteller, breathwork coach, and today I'm going to be your host, your guide for today's podcast episode. My friends, I'm so stoked to hop on this call today and have a great conversation with a dear friend and a mentor. But before we dive into that, let's do some deep, expansive breathing. So for this exercise, we're going to do a 4-second box breath. So that's going to be an inhale for 4, a hold for 4, an exhale for 4, and a hold for 4. And we're going to do that 3 times. So remember, as we inhale, we're going to inhale through the nose. And as we inhale, the belly's going to expand. The diaphragm's going to expand outwards like we're filling up a water balloon. Hold it at the top. And then going to exhale out the mouth. Feel that belly come back to your center. And then hold at the bottom for 4. I'm going to do that 3 times. So take this moment, whether this is your morning, your afternoon, or your night. Either way, bringing awareness to your breath, tapping into this moment, bring stillness and calmness for the rest of your day, or going into your rest and recovery state and dream state. So let's ground ourselves in this moment and begin with an inhale through the nose in 3, 2, 1. Inhale through the nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Exhale out the mouth. 3, 2, 1. Hold it. 3, 2, 1. Inhale through the nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Exhale out the mouth. 3, 2, 1. Hold it. 3, 2, 1. Last one through the nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. And exhale out the mouth. 3, 2, 1. Hold it. 4, 3, 2, 1. Ah, amazing. Thank you for practicing with me. Grab a sip of water. Hydration is key. And let's dive into this episode. So today, my friends, we got a treat. We got a treat. Today, our guest, he is an actor. He's an acting coach, the founder of The Modern Actor, an entrepreneur, a brother, a son, a boyfriend, a native New Yorker turned Angelino, a backstage expert, and a stubborn Mets fan. Welcome, Eddie Ramos.
Hey guys, welcome. Thank you for having me, Andrew. And yeah, man, that last like the Mets fan thing. I mean, it's like it's my hill to die on. It's my cross to bear.
Mm,
Native Queens guys. So I
mm.
ride for my orange and blue, and yeah, I get a lot of slack for that though from my New Yorkers, like my Yankee fan friends. Yeah, it's all good. We might dive into that.
Yeah.
Being breaking away from
Mm,
the patterns that maybe set before me from my family and from friends.
mm-hmm.
So.
I love it, man. I love it, man. Spicing up life. That's how we do it. That's how we do it.
Exactly.
All right,
Yeah,
brother.
man.
So first off, let's just start off with this present moment. Where are you? Where are you in this moment, this time and space? How are you feeling in this season in life? And anything on that? What comes up today?
Wow. So I will say that currently I'm gearing up for a move. So I'm
Mm,
literally I think we're moving next week. And so obviously with the move, I mean there's a lot of heaviness that comes around a move sometimes. Obviously a lot of excitement, but it can also weigh just on the psyche of like having to literally pick up and move somewhere else. So, breaking comfort zone things and all of that other things. But I
mm-hmm,
think right now I'm in such a present state of self-preservation. And what I mean by that is I'm really conscious of what is going to maybe take my more energy or take my energy in a place that I may not 100% be able to say yes to. So right now I'm just practicing like really saying yes to the things that I feel yes about and not just saying yes to things that I might actually feel no inside.
mm,
And I've changed, in the past where I've taken on more on my plate. Right now it's all about kind of emptying the plate in my life
mm,
and just so that I can make room for other things. Um, so I'm very conscious about that. And
mm.
you mentioned, the modern actor coaching and that's
We'll
how
dive
we got
into that.
connected.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And that's how we got connected. So, when you're when you have the business and you're holding space for other people,
Mm-hmm,
it's really important that like I think myself I'm able to be in a welcoming space to do that. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so that's where I am presently right now, just kind of gearing up for a move. And
Yeah.
as you know, like moves are
Mm-hmm.
sometimes pretty stressful. So that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful, man. Beautiful. All right, now we're gonna bang out the past. So
Okay.
I want you to, in your own words, to explain what the life of Eddie Ramos was at a young kid as you entered this world, as you navigated childhood, friends, middle school, high school, college, after college, and what life looked like to get you to where you are right now.
Wow. Uh,
Yeah, it's a loaded
so
question.
yeah, I know exactly. I'm like literally sitting back in my seat here. I was born and raised in Queens, New York, and 90s baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, I think what's really cool about growing up in Queens, New York, is that it's the most ethnically diverse place in the world, and you know that is our kind of our badge of honor, our claim to fame. If you've ever been to this part of New York, I mean, every block, the neighborhood completely changes, right? The demographic completely changes, and growing up in a place that's so multicultural, you know, a crayon box of different people. I mean, I think it really informed who I am, who I became, and I was really lucky. I think really privileged to have friends that were, you know, Jewish, you know, Chinese American, you know what I mean, like from all over the
Mm-hmm.
world. And I think that growing up in that, and obviously, you know, Latin and stuff. So I think it was really cool to grow up like that. And you know, New York is such a special place, and you know, the noise. I just remember, and I don't say that in a negative way, the noise, the kind of the sounds that kind of come together in New York. I mean, really feels like it's in my bones, and in my blood.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when I think back to maybe what made me become an actor, I it's hard to pinpoint an exact time. I don't remember the day that I was like, I'm an actor, but I think it was a culmination of like family and a culmination of friends of different things that I saw in my surroundings that maybe kind of pushed me in that direction. I felt supported in that I could do acting. I always knew that I wanted to be a performer, but I really think it started just like watching my family members. My grandfather, who is such an animated individual. My mother has
Mm-hmm.
her own, you know, fiery passions. And I think like I took that and was like, okay, what can I do with this? And acting was that real outlet for me when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't go to like a traditional acting school. So I didn't get to go to like LaGuardia or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Much to my dismay, obviously, I auditioned and I wanted to go that route. But I, in a way, not getting that opportunity allowed me to also have other opportunities. I was a huge baseball player. Um, in high school, I was the president of the student council.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it offered me an ability to be in school plays and be in the glee club and just try a bunch of different things and really flourish my other creative outlets also. um, I always found, or I always heard that if you had maybe gone to LaGuardia, that there was the potential of being burnt out from acting a little too early. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I got the right dose at the right time. I got to leave acting when I needed to do it, but then I got to, you know, do some fun, like, you know, obviously we had like stunt night was this thing where in high school we came together and did plays and shows. So I got to kind of flex that muscle sporadically throughout my middle school and high school career. And I think that was the perfect like breeding ground. I didn't get it out of my system too early, and I'm actually really grateful for that. It was a slow and steady um, discovery of the love for acting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I went to a small private school, and I think I was lucky to go to that private school. And obviously, there's big public schools in New York City, but you know how they talk about, you know, keeping your circle small and that support system tight.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with that without even knowing that was what I was kind of being introduced to early on.
Right.
You know, I graduated with 30 kids. Like my senior class was
Mm-hmm.
30, and I know some people that have graduated with 3,000. And that small kind of tribe, really, that like, you know, that village really molded me to have the confidence to go for this thing as well. You
Yeah.
know, I think when you're in a small group, you're like, well, we've got the actor, we've got the math guy, we've got the, you know what I mean, like the business. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone had their label, their thing. I wasn't really like bumping elbows with anybody else. I really was able to like step into my own in middle school and in high school also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
That
amazing.
was
Did
yeah.
you grow up with any like brothers or sisters?
Oh yeah, I'm the
Yeah.
eldest of four
Okay.
brothers. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Wow.
sadly
Yeah.
no sisters, all boys.
Uh-huh.
Which I feel like made my mom just like the toughest. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like she's tough, and um, but being the eldest comes again with like certain responsibilities. You know, you get in trouble first, but then you also
Mm-hmm.
get all the perks and benefits, right? Like I got the car
Mm-hmm.
first, and I got some other great things first, but I think it, you know, sometimes maybe parents don't realize this, but I think being the eldest, I mean, obviously makes you grow up a lot faster.
Mm.
Um, Sometimes you're the go-between between the parents and the other brothers. You know, you're the lead actor, I guess, in the way of
Mm.
the cast. And I know I took that responsibility to heart. I love being an older brother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm the little older. I'm the little big brother. So I have a brother who's 30, and he's the big 6 foot basketball player. And then I've got another brother who's like the IT whiz, and then I've got this other brother who's like really into business. So again, maybe
Yeah.
even in that, we all were
Mm.
able to kind of flourish and find our own identities also with my brothers.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah. And then have you been acting since little Eddie? Or and then did that
Uh-huh.
always stick with you? Were there ever times where you're like, oh, Mom, I don't really want to do this? Or was it always like, Mom, like take me to that audition or take me like I would need to like try out?
Yeah. Like again, it's really hard to like find that day that it started. I think when I was in like fourth grade or third grade, I mean, just remember always being the first one to volunteer to do the performance in class. Like even if it was
Mm-hmm.
like, perform this, this scene from, this English book that we're reading. I was always like hands raised, like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
maybe partially it was being the class clown, wanting to kind of
Mm.
make my voice heard. And then eventually got channeled into like, you're going to do a play, you know what I mean? This is where you can get all that energy out. This is
Yeah.
where you can be silly and it's not interrupting the class, so
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
I think my mom, and it wasn't like I was getting in trouble or anything. I think we just
Right.
all noted together that it was like that was something that like I really wanted to take more seriously. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously in New York, there's no shortage of
Mm-hmm.
theater. And at the time, I don't even know how she find it. Like this is pre-internet, like
Right.
pre how good Google is now. So it's like
Yeah.
I don't even know how she figured it out, but she found a youth acting group in like on Broadway or something called City Lights,
Mm.
and it turned from acting classes. They were also doing like an audition for like an off Broadway play, and I was cast as the lead boy in that play, and then then inviting friends to come see me. So I think early on I was like, oh my god, I love this way of creating. I love this way of expressing myself. I love this way of like connecting my friends to what I do. I love
Mm-hmm.
interacting with the audience in this way. At times I was definitely feeling like, I was hamming it up for the audience, but it was just something so fun to explore at
Mm-hmm.
that young age. Um, yeah, I loved it. And then from there, like I said, I didn't get to go to like LaGuardia or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But my high school, we also had plays, we had screenwriting. So I kept honing those skills. And senior year of high school, I think I didn't know you could be an actor. I really didn't think you could go to school for acting. And I don't know if other listeners might have had that same experience where it's like you could do acting in school. I always thought you had to do like communications or something.
Mm.
I don't know if you had this experience, but that's what I was going to go into. I was going to do like newscasting or reporting. I thought that was the
Mm-hmm.
only way you could do it.
Yeah.
But no, sure enough, as we were going through those, college websites, there was that theater degree, that BFA degree, and I was like, that's for sure what I'm gonna do. So,
Mm-hmm.
I applied to like 14 or 15 schools, got into a good number of them, and then eventually it was between Emerson College and Syracuse. And Syracuse just offered me more of, I guess, what I've always loved, being able to learn at a university and take my curiosities in any direction and not just again be kind of constricted just to acting.
Mm-hmm.
So I minored in political science there, and obviously took some other really interesting classes as well. So um, that's what took me eventually landed me here in LA. I don't know how much else you want me to share, but like I can,
Yeah,
I can go into any
I love
direction.
it. Did you find, because I know, was it, wait, so were you majoring in communication or were you majoring in like in theater?
No, yeah, I was majoring in acting. Yeah,
Okay,
so I was
yeah,
majoring in theater. Yeah, I quickly found out that I didn't have to do communications. Like broadcast journalism is what it was called.
right.
And during my summers in high school, my mom, I'm really lucky now, but in the time I was like freaking kicking and screaming. But my mom would send me to these like summer camps, so summer theater
Mm-hmm.
camps. And so I went to Boston one year. I went upstate, no, Long Island, I think one year. Um, and so the first one I went to, it was like focused on broadcast journalism. I told them I wanted to be an actor, and they put me in this like broadcast journalism. So that's my only introduction to what I could do
Yeah.
outside of high school. Was like, I guess I'm going to go into journalism and then make my way into like feature films. I didn't know that was the route.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't until I started applying to colleges that I saw that you could, check
Yeah,
off a box for theater BFA. Yeah, I just didn't
right.
know, you know.
And
Um,
while you were in Syracuse, was it always like when did you know that like film and TV was an option as well? Because at that point, was it mostly theater, or were you also like introduced? Or I mean, you're in New York too, so you might be seeing
yeah,
films being made around. When did you like know what lane you kind of wanted to get in? Not even that you have to get into a lane because you're an actor and you can do film and
yeah.
theater.
This is something that I will say I always knew from a very early age that I was leaning towards TV and film.
Mm,
And I think again, like that, those 90s, those early 2000s, watching, Nickelodeon and Disney Channel and all those, young actors on TV and seeing glimpses of what California looked like and being like, oh, there's sunshine and that's where these actors are and that's where Hollywood Studios is. Like, I think at a young age, as a young boy, like I always knew I was gonna leave New York and go west.
yeah.
Um, so that was something that I kind of always had in the back of my head. And then obviously like in theater school, your emphasis and focus is on theater. And I did something always like I wouldn't say that I was actively trying to be a rebel, but I knew that I just didn't want to stay stagnant. So part of the theater program was that like your first freshman year, you couldn't do any theater productions or student films. Um, and I think that's a good way to kind of get
Mm-hmm.
you to really learn the craft. And I get
Mm-hmm.
why they insist on that. But on my downtime, I was signing up for the film students like short films.
Right.
So even throughout my 4 years at Syracuse, I was already building my demo reel. I was already building my resume with like short film credits. I was
Mm-hmm.
getting my feet wet in front of the camera. It hadn't started until Syracuse though. So like in high school, it was all theater.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I got a taste of like being in front of the camera, I was like, oh yeah, like this just validated everything I was feeling as a kid. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it was as a what do they call it, a full body yes. That's what it felt
Mm-hmm.
like. It was full body. I was like, this is my jam. I love this. And obviously, being a coach now and an actor for so long, I'm glad that I positioned myself with footage early on, with experience early on, because I think it helped me transition as a professional actor a lot easier when I had
Mm-hmm.
those conversations with managers. So I didn't know that, past Eddie was, setting up a layup for future Eddie. I just was like,
Yeah.
this feels bad. I'm going against what all my other friends are doing. A lot of them were like, no, dude, you're gonna get in trouble. And we've all come to find out that those 4 years you're in that bubble and everything feels like life or death in college. But
Mm-hmm.
now both of us, years out of college, we realize like, you know, there really isn't much that could go wrong in your college years that's gonna fully affect
Mm-hmm.
all the years afterwards. So I'm
Yeah.
happy with what I did. There were some sleepless nights of like, oh my god, am I
Mm-hmm.
gonna get found out? But nothing ever happened, and I'm just
Yeah.
so happy I did it that
That's a
way. I really,
yeah.
really am. Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah,
So you're transitioning, you're getting closer to junior year, then you're in your senior year and you're starting to think of the next step, the next move. And you said it was always LA. What was the transition like from as you got closer to graduating? Was it nerves of being like, okay, now I'm an entrance, or is it like excitement? Like I know there's gonna like was there like a showcase that you went to where there were agents and managers and then you got found and then you went to LA, or did you just jump to LA and you're like, I'm gonna figure it out?
yeah. God, Andrew, you're asking all these questions. You told me that we were going to go a little bit, a little deep, and I haven't expressed this in a long time. And
Yeah.
you know, I think a lot of years when I was in my late like teens, early 20s, I felt like I was doing the wrong thing a lot of times.
Mm,
And I guess part of being from New York, um, there was this confidence in me that sometimes I think back to. I'm like, God, I wish I was still that, confident little, and sometimes
mm,
maybe even cocky, And I don't
mm-hmm.
think it was an offensive cockiness, but it was like a yeah, like I
Self-assured,
didn't
yeah.
know what I did. Yeah, I was self assured. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was just like, I just had this belief that I always call it like, I could ball, right? I knew I could
Mm-hmm.
play, and despite what anyone was going to tell me, despite the naysayers, I mean, I had a wonderful support and I'm privileged to say my parents were doctors. They knew nothing about the acting world, but like they supported the heck out of me.
Mm,
And like I said, coming from that small school, I had cheerleaders around me being like, "Go Eddie, go!" And that's all I knew. That's all I heard was "Go
mm-hmm.
Eddie, go!" And so, to your question, I mean, it was full throttle excitement. It was,
Mm-hmm.
there was not a doubt in my mind that I wanted to come out to LA, that I was going to leave college right away, that I was going to move from New York fast. I just knew.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you know, One of the things that like I think a lot of my colleagues, we were all worried that like New York felt safe at the point. New York was like really something that they were kind of like nurturing us to stay in theater, right? That was something that was big, obviously, over 10 years ago when I graduated college. And I remember like this casting director coming to speak to us and basically gave this like very depressing, scary story about this actor who moved to LA and got addicted to drugs and like was basically like, selling his soul, to
Mm-hmm.
do the industry, right? To do acting in Hollywood. And after he told that story, so basically he set it up like this. He was like, all right, guys, how many people want to go to LA? And so like the whole, everyone's hand rose and, I obviously shot up, tells this depressing story. And then he goes again and says, now how many people want to go to LA? And I still rose my hand. And it was like me and this other girl I remember. And I think she's still out here too. But it was like everyone else was like, no, that was enough to kind of deter me from that thought. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
again, like it was just a definite yes. And I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really need anybody's opinion. I knew I was going to come out here.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I also, though, I will say this, I didn't come out without a plan. I
Mm-hmm.
also had a manager coming out. So, our senior year of college, which a lot of schools are now doing this, they kind of bring you to LA or they bring you to New York, and you might have a semester there to kind of experience the city and understand
Mm-hmm.
things. We came out to LA for a week. I had never been out here, obviously, just
Mm-hmm.
like wide eyed and taking it all in. But I was lucky enough to get a manager meeting, and I was the only student from my group to get a manager meeting. And there was they wanted to sign me, and all I had to do was after graduating just come out here. So I did come out with
Mm.
some reps. I didn't.
Yeah.
I always think about like what it would be like if I had come out without. I mean, luckily I don't have to, think
Yeah.
too hard about that and relive it. It's just that's my story. But I definitely, I freaking worked my butt off that summer.
Mm.
I hustled 3 jobs in New York. I was like, doing I was working on a boat. So I was like catering. I was kind of promoting these like Copacabana in New York, like clubs and I don't know what I was doing. I just knew it
Yeah.
was like I needed a big chunk of change to come out to LA. So I
Mm.
worked, and then I also had representation, and that I think gave me enough confidence to come out here. But I think about that a lot, man. I think about that like youthful naivete,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there's just something so it's one of the things that I think young people don't realize that's their superpower is that they
Yeah.
are naive, right? That they're like, yeah, they're not jaded. They like, and I think if you can rely on anything, rely on the fact that you haven't gotten your heart broken yet, you haven't fallen on your face yet, like
Mm.
you haven't lost anything, go for it. And I really use that
Yeah.
um, as my inner dialogue and my monologue a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I personally think to be an actor, I think you have to be naive. The
Yep.
numbers don't make sense. Like if you go with the logic, then you're done. so you have to have that inner belief, like that deep belief, which is challenging. I mean, even like when you're like a little kid of just, jump, like there's no consequence to anything yet because you haven't experienced something to get that consequence. Where if someone shuts you down, a parent, a teacher, someone that says this is wrong, and then you hear that enough times to be like, I'm not even going to try anymore. And I think that happens after like the youthfulness, and then you're in the industry, and then you experience, the percentage of what it's like to actually book the job and how many times you don't get it. And I don't think it's sustainable without that kind of naivete. So yeah, but I wanted to, what was it like once you got to LA? You're in LA. You're like under the stars, bro. It's La La Land. And
Yeah, that's
was it work immediately? Was it space in between, side jobs, side hustles, background work? What was that transition kind of like?
Yeah. I'd like to think that it was work immediately, right? And my memory will
Mm-hmm.
will often play tricks on me, but it's like starting up in any city. I mean, it's first about I got a roommate out of college, so I quickly found someone in my network at Syracuse who was like, "Hey, I'm looking for a roommate." She was a year older than me, and so it's just setting that kind of like that structure, that foundation first, and then from there, what did I do next? Was I found a job, so I worked at CVS, which is across the street. uh, Shout out the Lancashire Vineland
Hey.
CVS in NoHo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I worked there first, man. And then obviously but I will say again, like with having reps, it was nice to have somebody being like, all right, now that you're here, we're going to start submitting you. And then it was quiet, it was pretty, I
Mm-hmm.
think what they always do, right? They give you one audition and it's like, oh man, this is how it's going to be for the rest of my life. And then maybe right after that audition, it goes quiet again. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think a lot of actors will resonate with. It's like when you're signing with that new team, there's so much like rah energy. How do you keep that going when maybe it feels silence, or maybe there's feels some distance right between you and your new
Mm-hmm.
reps? So I was constantly submitting myself, right? And so I was on Actors Access, I was on Backstage, I was checking the trades, right, and keeping an ear to the ground of what was happening in local theater here in LA. But I was also just like really discovering who I was.
Mm.
Again, all my family's in New York. All
Yeah.
my friends were in New York. I was the only person really, other than me and that girl that I mentioned, was the only person on this side of the world. And I got one thing that I love about California was there's enough quiet here to start to listen to your own inner voice,
Mm-hmm.
start to find things that you like. I'm a young man in my early 20s, I'm exploring. I got a car for the first time, so I'm able to drive to the beach and go to hikes and really just wherever my mind wanted to go or my curiosities wanted to take me, I was able to do that on my own time. I was like
Mm-hmm.
just fully independent for the first time, no
Yeah.
college, no parents. I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
so and obviously there's the opposite side of that coin where maybe that allows someone to get lost. I was like, this is so cool. I can really start following my North Star.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas in New York, like there was a certain identity that I had, obviously, a certain pattern, a certain routine. This was all brand new, all fresh. So I could start, clean slate out here. So I spent a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time just discovering,
Yeah.
just playing, just discovering. And then obviously like when it came game time to the auditions, I was taking classes, I was getting the right things, the headshots, building the demo reel,
Mm-hmm.
having coffee with the right people, I thought,
Yeah.
and so it was just balancing that kind of work life balance, like they
Yeah.
always say. Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome, dude. All right, and now for friends and family listening, I'm on Eddie Ramos's IMDb page, and I'm gonna read off some filmography that he's done in the past. So we have Animal Kingdom Incorporated, Teen Wolf, Lethal Weapon from 2017, Bunker, which I have also still yet to see, and which was actually there was a theatrical release, friends, across the nation, and I'm gonna get your info on that because I need to watch that.
Okay.
Eraser Reborn, and then a bunch of 010, Mr. Mayor, Hightown, Endless, Song to Pass, LA's Finest. I mean, the credits just keep on rolling. And I also just want to highlight Teen Wolf,
Hmm.
brother. It's funny because for me, I never really grew up watching, Raging Bull and Apocalypse Now and The Godfather. Like it wasn't like these like De Niro and Pacino and Brando that got me into acting. It's funny because when I was in high school, I started watching Teen Wolf with like my sister. And I remember I was reading my old journals from when I was like 14, 15, 16, 17 before I had ever taken an acting class. or there was like this part of me that kind of like one knew I wanted to, but I couldn't express it physically because I felt like I was in a box just being an athlete. But I remember watching Teen Wolf, and there was something about just seeing other dudes like around that age, like young adult content, where I'm like, it was like I remember writing like kind of like I want to be like Dylan O'Brien, you know, like on that thing, like
Mm,
doing the thing in a young adult thing. Like I could see myself on the stage. And then when I connected with you and I saw you were on in Teen Wolf and as a guest star, and I remember that scene, I was like, dude, this is crazy. So I just
yeah,
wanted to acknowledge you for that, dude, because you've done some really cool stuff. And I just want to
yeah,
me and quickly touch on what has it been like when you book that role and you're like, dude, this
yeah,
is it. I'm gonna make it.
yeah.
The idea of making it, and you're on this set, you're with the people, like this is what you dream of, and you're in it, and it's amazing, and it's like 10 out of 10, and then it's like over, and you're on to the next thing, or there's space in
Yeah.
between, and then you get the next thing, and like, what has that journey kind of been like for you?
I talk a lot about this in therapy. So it's,
Mm-hmm.
I've been seeing a therapist maybe right before the pandemic. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people just will never understand what it's like to kind of start and go or,
Mm-hmm.
hear nothing or face rejection from time to time. And I'm still personally exploring it. I can't say that I have like the full like understanding of even what makes me me and what makes actors. You're an actor too. Like there
Mm-hmm.
is a special place in us that we can kind of compartmentalize or keep moving forward in the face of adversity. I
Mm-hmm.
think it is a special skill, um, and you touch on something that's amazing. Like Teen Wolf was such a pivotal credit in my on my
Mm-hmm.
resume, and it still comes to it comes in the conversations with new clients. It comes up in things like this. Like it was a huge win, and I can't tell you
Mm-hmm.
about like the power and the scope at that time of it. Like it was a hot show still, you know what I mean? Like and you're right, all these young actors, Tyler Posey, Dylan O'Brien. I mean, everyone's at the top of their game. It's a cool credit to have on your resume.
Mm-hmm.
And what I will say a lot that I've learned in this industry is that perception is everything, and work does beget work in this industry, and building momentum really does matter. And so
Mm-hmm.
once I had that credit, once I got that onset experience, that's what opened the door for my series regular on Incorporated, which was only maybe a year after that. You know what I mean? And it's things like that that will always make me so proud of where I've come. And even if it ended tomorrow, which God willing it doesn't, I know I can look back and be like, yeah, like I did some pretty awesome things, and I've been on some
Mm-hmm.
amazing sets and met some cool people. But I will say this, like Dylan O'Brien, you mentioned him, and I've had the opportunity to like talk with him off of set.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way you navigate this industry is you have an identity that's outside of this industry. And
Yeah.
he's one of those guys, along with Tyler, like they just are awesome dudes. Like you want to
Mm-hmm.
spend the rest of the like you want to just keep hanging with them. I mean, they can talk about other things other than acting. There's an energy about them that's just real down to earth, real chill. They made being on set really easy. They welcomed me, you know what I mean? The
Mm-hmm.
new actor, I think they took me under their wing on that episode. And I think that's always what I've tried to emulate is
Mm-hmm.
how can I once this high, this 10 out of 10 ends, how do I keep Eddie still at a 10 to 10? How do I
Yeah.
keep so a lot of the things that I practice again are like I keep like a list in my car of things that make me super happy. And going to the
Mm-hmm.
ocean is one. Listening to the Beatles is one. Going on a hike or going on a road trip up to San Fran is one. You know what I mean? So like there are ways that I try to again recapture that feeling so that again it's not only when I'm on set that I feel happy and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
depleted for 10 months out of the year.
Yeah.
Um, and it's been that has probably been one of the biggest like learning lessons, and I think you just get better at that. But
Mm-hmm.
certainly in the beginning, it's like once you get a taste of that
The
forbidden
highs are,
fruit,
yeah,
yeah,
man. The
exactly,
good
right.
is
And
so good.
good is so good. And I will say too, man, like again, I don't know if you're religious in any way, but I know that just spirituality in general is something that has been really pivotal in my
Mm-hmm.
life. So, prayer, meditation, ways to again quiet that ego because it's just like an ego hit. Like, is there
Yeah.
ways to kind of come back to? that inner child, or go back to just who I am,
Mm,
and I'm not those roles. I'm not my resume only. I'm much more than that. And so,
mm.
yeah, I think that's been the conversation, the ongoing
Yeah,
navigation
man.
for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think of faith so much because I never grew up in the church, but being fairly spiritual and then going through my journey, just really being mindful of the voice inside my head. And I think one of the things, actually, the reasons why I connected so deeply with you was because you had the language, like you had the understanding, the mindfulness practice. I've always been trying to find, my core group of people, and sometimes it's like it was like an athlete for a little bit, and then it was people in like so they're in like the health and fitness kind of realm, and there's like I have spiritual friends who are here doing that thing, and then I have like acting friends, but the acting friends aren't always like as deep into the health and the health practices as well. So for you to be able to combine, as I was like discovering myself and finding the different versions of myself that I was loving, it was a combination of play and theater and performance, but I didn't want to lose the mindfulness side of myself. And I think not just actors, but I think there's more actors stepping into that space because it's the only way to really stay sustainable. But I think across the world, I think it's becoming a lot more with scientifically proven and being able to study brainwave scans and meditation and everything. It's just so attractive. And when I met you and we did my first class with you and we did a meditation, dude, and I felt myself buzzing, and I'm just and we're doing the breathing, we're doing the tapping,
Yeah.
it creates longevity. And it's like, how else are you going to sustain being on set for 16 hours and you might work for actually like 2 hours but you're waiting for 14, and how do you sustain that? And it's so important, dude. And I just think the work that you're doing is so amazing, and it's so aligned. And I had a question on navigating
Sure.
this
Yeah.
space, the space in between, because I think
Yeah.
that's the ultimate challenge for actors. And I know I've heard Viola Davis talk about, if you're going to be an actor, like, don't just be an actor, don't just have
Hmm.
acting friends. It's
Hmm.
about the life outside of that, because again, it's like people who aren't actors don't it's the life of a circus. But when you're performing, you're in ecstasy. It's like you're an
Yeah.
adrenaline junkie. That's why they keep chasing, that's why they keep going out, and that's why people can't relate to it, because they've never experienced the ecstasy of living literally on the edge. And it's so the come down though is really challenging throughout that. So creating a baseline, creating a foundation, creating community, creating support is so important. And you've shared some of the ways that you navigate that space of things that lift your soul and charge your batteries. But then you like slowly start coming into the space of where I think everything is truly aligned, that has led you to this moment of the modern actor and
Mm.
being a coach, but also being a leader, and what that looks like. And I wanted to hear how that emerged. Was it like, were you kind of like thinking about it and then it was like someone else bang like, no, you have to pursue this, and there was a resistance, or was it just all in? Because I feel like just hearing your story about being an older brother too, just leadership is almost in your blood.
Yeah.
And I've seen you just from doing the movie clubs with a group of
Yeah.
people, just mentoring and teaching me as well, is that it feels so naturally you. But I know things that come naturally, it's like the work. It's like actors do all the preparation so that when they come up, it's just easy, but it's all the pre-work beforehand. So what was the culmination of what led to the modern actor, and how has that brought fruit to like your life as an actor and also as just Eddie Ramos?
Yeah. So I think that's what I was trying to get at earlier. Like when I was in college, when I was in high school, I got little bits and tastes of leadership. And like I
Mm,
said, I was senior class president. And of course, back in the day, it was a popularity contest. And I'll admit to that, I thought I was really like making some strides and trying to
mm,
change the school. But I think again, when you're in a school of 30 and you're the actor, I think, certain people gravitate to just being like, yeah, that guy sounds, he's funny. Let's go for
mm-hmm,
him. And maybe I'm being a little self-deprecating than I should. Maybe I was good for the job, but I will say that I often fought with this like two identities. I had dual identities. It was like one guy was this New Yorker guy who was like tough and didn't show emotion and was like, yeah, just trying to be cool and trying to fit in and do all the things that a young teenager, early 20s guy wants to do. And then this other part of me was that burgeoning leader that was like, no, let's take time for yourself. Let's lead a group of actors together. Let's start something new. And so for a long time, it was just battling those two things. And I think again in
Mm-hmm.
college, and maybe some of your listeners will have had experiences like this, where when you're in a conservatory acting program, now you're not just the only best actor like you were in your high school. Now everybody's the best actor that they were in high school.
Right.
So you now need to readjust, or quote unquote readjust, what you think your identity is. And I know that in the past I've struggled with like standing on my voice when I'm in a group, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I will often kind of take a different path, the rebellious path, like the path of like, well, I don't want to, be the teacher's pet, or I doesn't feel aligned with me to, do my work on time. It was just resistance for resistance sake, even though I was feeling resistance for doing that in my body. I didn't want to keep getting in trouble. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to get scolding. Who wants to get scolded? Like, who wants to be embarrassed in front of the crew? But oftentimes I felt like I was doing that for maybe the other kid in the back that felt, you know,
Yeah.
not invisible or not being seen. So again, maybe like even being a rebel, I was also trying to be like a leader, but it
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel great all the time. So when I came out to LA, again, now I'm by myself. Now it's really no one's watching me. I don't have to put on airs. I can really just take a second to find out who I am. I start writing about acting. So that was one of
Mm-hmm.
the first things I remember doing, was like, let me journal. And it wasn't online just yet, but it was like, let me just write about everything that I'm experiencing. And then eventually I did set up the website, which was The Modern Actor, in 2015. And it was just like, I went on this audition, here's what I learned, or, maybe some tips or whatever. And then I had people reaching out being like, hey, how did you get on Teen Wolf? How did you, get a manager? And so they were asking all these like very key questions. And now obviously in 2024, I mean, there's not a shortage of these kind of articles
Yeah.
written and podcasts about these things. I was in the beginning of doing that, and I
Yeah.
remember like there wasn't much else out there at the time. And so these questions eventually turned into blog posts, which eventually were able to help me kind of um, reached more people online. And then I got my first clients through that, probably around like 2017 to 2018.
Mm.
And dude, 100%, I was like, who the hell am I to
Mm.
give advice? I'm not, I'm not on billboards. I don't have a Hollywood Walk of Fame. I don't have a house in the hills. Like, I equated my worth to those things, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm nowhere. How can I give advice? And I think eventually, like, I was like, well, you do have some experience. You've been on sets, you can talk about the things that you can talk about. And to this day, it's never been about like, fronting or kind of posing like I've done it all. It's just been about sharing my experience. And I think that's a lot of people have found value in that. And um, it pushes me to keep going too, in a way, you know what I mean? Because I do want to
Yeah.
provide value to my guys that are like, okay, can you tell me about this? And I'm like, you know what? I can't yet, but let me go out and try to get you some
Mm-hmm.
information. So yeah, it just grew from the blog. It grew from my own self-doubt, and eventually, you know how it is. And you're a coach as well. I mean, or you do one podcast and you're like, okay, I've got the confidence now to do another podcast, and
Mm-hmm.
so on and so forth. And then you find yourself with, a number of clients, and that's where we've really grown, or I've grown the business. But it all starts with
Yeah.
one, and really having that conversation. You're like, can I really do it? What am I saying? And that's another thing I'll say too. I don't go by the seat of my pants. I try my best now to be prepared. And when I was in college, man, I just was like winging it. And maybe again, that's that naivete we were talking about. That's just such a scary place to operate from.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in a business that doesn't have stability, doing as much as you can to have or add structure to the actor's life, I think will do wonders. It has definitely done wonders for me. So part of what I do with my students is I don't just sit down and say, okay, let's just chat. No, it's like, build out the curriculum. What would I have needed when I was getting started? What are some of the things they're not thinking about? So I structure all of that down to the T.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I love about being an entrepreneur is it's a puzzle piece. It's a puzzle. Every day I get to figure out the puzzle pieces,
Yeah.
and it changes all the time. Every week it changes, the process changes.
Mm-hmm.
But it also allowed me to gain control of my life. And
Yeah.
when we go back to the ups and downs, the roller coaster, it allowed me to have an avenue where like Eddie is holding the reins here. So
Mm-hmm.
I can let somebody else or let the industry kind of take this hand, but I know I've got some 2 feet on the ground in my business, and
Yeah.
with my family and with my friends and things like that. So
Yeah.
I'm allowing myself to get taken away on that roller coaster ride with acting,
Mm.
which I've
Yeah.
I've surrendered to at this point. I've submitted
Yeah.
to, like, it's a roller coaster, and roller coasters are an adventure. And
Yeah.
so that's the beautiful thing about it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's the best. Side hustle isn't even the right word because it's such a now it's like lifestyle now. And I
Yeah.
wanted to has once you stepped into the space of leading and teaching through the modern actor, have you found that it's helped you as an actor as well?
100%. So every day, I mean, and this quote and cliche, we've heard it 1,000 times. Like, I mean, obviously, like, if you're preaching this and putting it into practice, you're doing it, you're acting upon it. I mean, every day when I get to speak to you, I mean, I've always enjoyed our conversations, because you will oftentimes, and maybe I haven't admitted this to you, you'll unlock something in my own head. I mean, I'm in
Mm,
such awe of you, dude. I know we've got some years between us,
mm,
and I'm like, dude, this is a guy that's doing it, man. And
thank you.
I wish we were friends when I was in my 20s. Like,
Yeah.
you would have been part of my crew. Like, you would have been the guy that I was like, oh man, thank God for Andrew, because, like, this is what I
Mm,
needed at that time. But yeah, I learned about acting, of course. You know, Sometimes when I teach, I'll get the deadpan stare from across the screen, and I'm like, okay, I know I'm losing you. Let me. So
mm-hmm.
it's always it's a beautiful thing of, like, refining. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing of, like, maybe dumbing something down, or maybe enhancing it on a different level. It gets me to improv constantly. It's
Mm,
playing on so many factors
yeah.
as an actor, the business, and being one-on-one with someone. I mean, I take away so much. And then obviously I'm blessed and grateful, because I get to watch you guys just, like, let loose also. And it teaches me to, like, have fun and
Mm-hmm.
try new things. And so, yeah, I'm constantly learning about it. What I will say too is that acting is about putting in the reps. And so with class, whether teaching or you're in the gym constantly.
Yeah.
And like we've talked already about this point, when auditions are far and few between, when the roles are even further and in between, how do you keep that muscle alive? And class is a great way to do it, or just having
Mm-hmm.
conversations like this is a great way to do it
Yeah.
too. Um, but yeah, it certainly helped me. Um, and you mentioned lifestyle. It really has become like my life. It's what I breathe. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would have never expected this to be the path. I couldn't tell
Mm-hmm.
you that I knew that this was going to be the vision in the future.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that I think came naturally, and I'm so
Yeah.
happy that it did. It really took a weight off my shoulders, in so many ways. And it's blessed me with so many things too. Like, just meeting all of you guys. I have so many new friends. I have so many new connections,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't mean connection in any type of business way. I just mean connection of, like, got to combine my spirit with someone else across the
Yeah.
country. Like, how awesome!
Yeah.
And in more than just a phone call, like, we spent time together, and I like
Mm-hmm.
love it. I love that feeling. Yeah,
Yeah, dude,
yeah, yeah.
you're a natural at it. It's amazing. It's amazing to see and to be a part of as well. Now, you are naturally a very gifted writer as well. I've read your blog posts. I know you've been doing that
Oh,
for a while as well.
yeah.
But I'm curious, outside of acting, have you ever been introduced, had an idea of dipping your toe into directing or of writing or producing? Have you ever thought of putting on that hat at all?
It is certainly something that I am more and more pulled to day after day.
Mm-hmm.
And but that being said, it has been a seed in my mind since you since you go to college and they say collaborate with your friends. And I think at that point I was like, nah, I'm an actor. Like, I just want to be the
Yeah,
lead on your
right.
show. I'll be the lead, right? And so but these are seeds that get planted in every actor's ear from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
when they get into the business. But I think it hasn't really landed true until maybe the last, like, maybe since the pandemic, maybe for the
Mm-hmm.
last 4 years, where it's not only been something that's like, okay, yeah, it makes sense, but it's also like, yeah, it's going to help you longevity wise. It's going to help you long term if you start applying your acting in other ways, applying your god-given skills of leadership, public speaking. I mean, all the other things you've been mentioning, entrepreneurship. How can you start combining all these other factors and maybe become a producer, maybe become a director? I'm a, like, avid studier of the craft. I love watching film. I love writing, and so it's been something that has been weighing heavy on
Mm-hmm.
my heart, Andrew. And I think where I am presently, man, and I'll be 100% honest, it's like, okay, how do I find like the balance between my relationship with my girlfriend, who, I'm in a really awesome place, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, thinking about making that next step in the
Yeah.
next, the next few months.
Yeah.
And so that's a life shift that I'm also
Mm-hmm.
conscious of, right? And
Yeah.
then obviously my beautiful modern actors that I care so much about, like, and don't want to lose the speed with them. And then
Mm-hmm.
obviously my own creative
Yeah.
feelings and feed that I need to do. So it's just like that's where I'm at. Like I'm like, all
Yeah.
right,
You're
how
in a
can I
good
like
pocket.
juggle all? Yeah, I'm in a pocket, but for sure I'm trying to like juggle that into. And that being said, just to answer back to your question, I am a serial starter and not finisher of scripts. I have so many, man, that I have like, oh, dude, like if you were to look at my phone, I have idea after idea, and then obviously
Mm-hmm.
on Google Docs and on my Word docs, I've got scripts after scripts, and it's just about aligning myself,
Yeah.
and being open to that opportunity when it appears.
Yeah.
So I'm 100%, game. And I think in the
Mm-hmm.
next few months before the year's over, I really want to um, put the wheels in motion on producing some work. And I
Yeah.
think the cool thing too is like nowadays, I think the daunting, and maybe some of your listeners might again have this experience. It's like, God, I got to write a 200-page feature. I'll get to that eventually, And I think
Right.
nowadays we realize that like the bar, it doesn't have to be that high. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
put that expectation on your first project. Like not everyone out
Mm-hmm.
here is doing Good Will Hunting. And although
Right.
I think that's a great way to like motivate us, I think stories like that can also be the reason we don't get started. You're like, oh my God, I got to win an Oscar the first one I get. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, you can also write a 30-second short. You can. And
Yeah.
so I think maybe I'm just preaching to myself right now. I'm saying this out loud so that I can also, hear it out loud too. So,
That helps all of us, dude. I got this like download 3 weeks ago where I woke up at 4 a.m. Like
yeah.
from a dream, and I'm like, this is a film. And I got to my notes and I started plugging away, and I started writing it, and I started fleshing it out a little bit on my Google Docs, and then you're like in the flow for a couple of days, and in it's like meditation isn't just a sitting meditation. Meditation you can get when you're walking, when you're driving, when you're exercising, and sometimes when you're doing activities, it can clear the junk out of your mind to allow things to come in. And sometimes when I'm doing that, all I'm thinking about is this idea, and then it's leading to this, and then I write it down, and then it leads to that. And then it just like evaporated a little bit. And it started also transforming into like too much of like the matrix. I'm like, how do I keep this original and organic? And then you have all the voices in your head telling you what not to do. And it's nuts. It's really challenging. I think it's really one of those things where people say it's a miracle that movies get made, that a script gets started from start to finish, and then to get the pieces together, to get the schedule together. And I think that's also where I've heard a lot of filmmakers say just the naivete of when they were younger. It was really like guerrilla style filmmaking where we just jumped in, and then we didn't know these challenges were going to arise, and but we figured it out along the way. And then you experience that enough times, then you're getting ready to start a project and you know the challenges, you're writing and you're like, I don't know if we can do this, so we're just not going to do it, versus writing it and then just not saying anything's possible. So I feel that, dude, it's super real, especially with scripts, but I think just it's such an incredible muscle to work because we're playing in imagination for so, yeah.
So many thoughts just came into, because like obviously there's something going on right now, and at the time of this recording, like there's Oppenheimer had just won, and Christopher
Mm.
Nolan, famously just like disappears for 3 years and like writes his script, or Daniel Day-Lewis disappears for 6 years and worse. Like, and I think like I've also often also battled like, damn, so I have to just put myself in a bunker for two
Mm.
years. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, and again, like, can I add that to my level of like acting already is the thing that I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm hunkering down, and now I'm gonna add this thing to it too. And so maybe that's also been part of my narrative, like of, wow, can I put my head down for years, really,
Mm-hmm.
on these scripts? And I think part of what stopped me also, same thing. I get super excited, I get started, and then that habit kind of fades away, right? Like no
Mm.
longer waking up at 6 a.m. Now you're like, I'll stay until 7, maybe
Right.
now.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm gonna go to the gym this morning and not do my writing like I said. And now
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, now I'm starting to break that pattern up. So I know that is something that I practical advice is building that habit. And we've heard it time and time again on books and podcasts, like keep that habit alive. But I've seen it happen because I've gotten, close to the end when I've gotten that habit thing going.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing too is like, you kind of just sparked something in my head. Like, we have acting coaches, and I wonder if maybe it's also about finding maybe a script writing coach or an
Mm,
accountability partner that
yeah.
again is going to be. I think it's really awesome when you can look at someone that's done the thing you're wanting to do, and then they can basically kind of impart that wisdom to you.
Yeah.
I try to do it with my students. I've gone coaching myself, and maybe that's something I might explore. Is like, can I sign up for a screenwriting class and finally do the thing, not just be a dreamer actor or a dreamer writer, really,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
put my money where my mouth is, and actually get this thing going. I think I feel like I might be successful with that option.
Yeah.
Having somebody
Absolutely.
just kind of teach me the ways. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went through, like, I didn't read books when I was younger. Once I really graduated college, I started getting interested in learning, and now learning is the greatest gift, and it's a lifelong practice. And like I read Sid Field's book on writing and screenwriting, and it's one of those things where you read it and it's like, oh, this is really cool, this is really great. But unless you're really doing it with them, there's not that accountability that's giving you that extra edge to get outside your, because you're building a new habit. You're not just building a new habit, you're breaking old habits too. It's one of the most challenging things. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about it in his book Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. It's one of the most challenging things to stay consistent in a new practice. And I find that just reading the book or just, like doing yoga on something. I went through a phase where I was doing yoga on YouTube. So I would like, all right, it's on you, Andrew, to get the mat out, to get the YouTube video up, and then create a space in your room to do that every single morning. But when you have, and I found that wasn't sustainable, but when you had a group, like I got to get up, I got to get in my car, I got to go in person, and then you're exchanging energy and conversations with other human beings. And then there's almost an accountability of just being like, oh, they're like, they might miss me if I'm not there. Or I'm not going to have that interaction that lifts my soul, and stuff like that. So I found things in person and finding those mentors and even be hopping on Zooms and seeing people face to face and having accountability partners is such an important part of maintaining those habits.
Absolutely, and I want to see something to just add one more thing, and kind of like I feel like I'm gonna throw a curve here. It's like also being okay too if that's just not part of your story. I think also
Mm,
I battle with like, do I have to write a script? Do I have to produce? Do I have to
mm,
direct just because I'm an actor? And like, obviously like people might say, no, that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. But again, like I think also doing things that you really feel called to do.
yeah.
Um, and again, doing things that might not actually have a result. So maybe you write a script
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't need to be produced. It doesn't need to be in a festival. You just wrote a script. And I think maybe these things get lumped together. Like, well, if you write the script, you might as well put it in a film festival. You might as well go against, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe that's just not what I'm into. And
Yeah.
I think I've also battled in the years, and maybe that's also why I haven't done it, is because I just really love acting and I love my business and I love,
Yeah.
my little pocket, my little corner. Um, uh, so I just something to also throw into the conversation
Yeah.
of, not feeling like it's absolutely necessary in order to be an actor. You must do all these other things. I think only do that if it really calls you and
Yeah.
speaks to you, and it's something that you have to literally get out, a story you need to tell. But being
Mm-hmm.
okay with like, yeah, I'm an actor, and I'm an
Yeah.
actor for right now, and I'm just an actor,
Yeah.
or I'm just a director, and I don't need to also produce. I don't also need to act. Like, I think that's okay too. It's like kind of owning your side of the street and not feeling like you
Mm-hmm.
need to cross to the other side to be seen by everybody and everything, or be
Yeah.
okay. And so I know I battle with that often, personally. It's like, man, I just really love what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that'll change.
Yeah, I think that totally lends to Socrates who's saying, know thyself, and like really tapping into your intuition and what feels right. Because it's so easy to have voices, people, family, friends. And then also, like, if you're an actor or someone, you have team members who you're actually supporting by doing your work, and they're chirping in your ears, putting pressure on you. So, how can we set a practice? And that's really usually like a mindfulness practice. And mindfulness can look so different in so many different ways, but knowing what works for you so that you can acknowledge and be aware of that inner voice, that inner critic, and the gut intuition to make those choices for you. So that's such a great point because it's very easy to off your soul's path. But
I
yeah.
hate saying it. I feel like that goes against the optimistic, positive coaching archetype. But
Mm,
I think I just want to keep speaking to that person that doesn't feel seen sometimes or feels like lost. And I've always tried to connect with that person. I try not to be just 100% like, rah rah go go. Like it's
Yeah.
also okay to like be doing what you do.
Yeah.
Like it's okay too, I think. And there's some, and I think we need to hold some room for those
Yeah.
individuals too that don't need to do everything by the book, everything by the
Hmm.
mold. Yeah. So maybe that's
Absolutely.
me again talking to that younger guy. I don't know.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Now I found that there are possible realities when you have kids who are introduced to a class, whether that's a cooking class or whether that's music or dance or acting, and who knows what their future might look like. But in that moment, there was a teacher, like they were maybe enthusiastic, and then there was a professor, a teacher that was their teacher for their first taste of this new thing, this new act of creative expression, and they just weren't the best teacher. They maybe had this ability to make you feel bad about yourself or think that you're dumb or incapable, not inspiring, or even you're an okay teacher, but there's a difference between having an okay teacher and a great teacher that inspires you and pushes you on that path a little bit more. So sometimes we get to this space of saying like, oh, I really want to do this, and then just based off of the group you're with or the class or the teacher you're with, you're like, oh wait, no, this thing actually isn't for me. But really, that was just a tidbit of what that was instead of experiencing the whole. But that cuts people off from pursuing it further. And I found that it's very rare, but it's one of the most beautiful things in life is when you come across that coach, when you come across, it could be even a big brother or just any mentor in life that sees something in you and then inspires you, encourages you to elevate yourself to not just to step into your belief. It's really just I feel like when you're young and it's so easy to not believe in yourself, and then you have someone that sees you and then believes in you, but then that gives you permission to believe in yourself, and then that's the thing that catalyzes you to pursue it further and with your whole heart. So I want to know for you, did you have any mentors specifically that saw the light in Eddie, saw the talent in Eddie at the young age, whether that's a coach, whether that's a peer or a director or anything along that lines, or just a stranger in life or a neighbor, did you have any mentors along this journey?
Yeah, 100% I did. I know I did, and if I can't name them all right now on this call and on this podcast, um, they're they're in me. They've definitely, spoken to me. So I think, first and foremost, it starts with, I was lucky to have a really awesome grandfather who I looked up to, alpha male in my family. And I don't say that in a negative way. I just say like he was everything that you would look to for a protector, for guidance, for someone to say it how it was, someone to be safe with. And he's no longer with us now, and I miss him all the time. But he was definitely, the voice that taught me maybe not so much acting, but just how to navigate the world. I mean, I really
Mm-hmm.
really found my grandfather be a mentor there. And then, well, like I mentioned in high school, I had an awesome headmaster, who looked at me and decided not to decided not to look at like maybe the obvious of being like, oh, this kid needs attention, or this kid acts out, or he's a class clown. He was like, no, I'm going to give you responsibility. So every morning you're going to come in, you're going to do the morning announcements. I'm going to
Mm,
lean on you. And I think when you're, maybe that's the word right there, right? It's like leaning on a child or leaning on a young person, even though you could do it all yourself. Can you give the illusion, or can you give the impression that you're leaning on them? You actually need them to show up and to do something. I think that gives a young person so much freaking I guess value and self love, and and so I needed that at that time. And then
mm-hmm.
obviously, once I got to college, now you kind of you're in front of a new audience, and
Mm-hmm.
you're finding where you fit with certain professors. And in that as well, I remember two professors my senior year, and I keep going back to the senior year. It was the year that all of a sudden I really woke up. I really
Mm-hmm.
woke up in my junior year, went to London, and that was it for me. They had told me right away, they were like, yeah, this like charming thing that you're gonna do, this like New York or whatever you think you're doing, it's not gonna work for us Brits. And I was like, ooh, I love it, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
love the fight,
Mm-hmm.
I love the resistance. Okay, but it was already speaking to somebody inside of me that wanted to change, that wanted to get
Mm-hmm.
serious. So then senior year comes around. You mentioned earlier a showcase. I didn't get invited to do the showcase. So these things got put on like a chip on my shoulders. And I had one professor who did TV and film that really saw something in me. And I think again was like, he was like, this is what you can do when you're in LA. This is how you do this and that. And I was like a sponge taking everything from that professor. And then I had another professor say one of the most profound things to me, to every actor when you're first getting started. He was like, I did my monologue and it was okay. He goes, Eddie, let me ask you something. Where are you from? I was like, I'm from, New York, Queens. It's like, then how come you're not acting like it? And I was just like, I don't even know what you're talking about. He's like, be yourself. And I know it was like the most cliche thing, but it really like a light bulb, because I think so many actors are scared to be themselves. You want to just kind of act like the kid who's getting all the recognition. You want to not, you don't
Mm-hmm.
really know what I could, I want to sound like Matt Damon. I want to do, I want to be
Mm-hmm.
Leo. And it's like, be yourself
Yeah.
in all your different ways. And so that was one of the first times I had been told that, and it really stuck with me. um and ever since, right, like I told you, coming out to LA, I really had that, like, who am I, how can I lead with that, how can I be proud of that, um more. And then obviously, like, I think I had a great life coach, maybe 3 years ago, that really blew my mind, and really spoke to me. He was a young man also, and I was a couple of years younger than him, and I really looked to him as a mentor. He's
Mm-hmm.
also been someone that shaped the way I interact with my students. He actually was someone that started, the meditation before the sessions, and that
Mm-hmm.
was like, yeah, why don't we do that in acting? I used to hate just being thrown into scenes. I would be nervous. I wouldn't know my lines. And I think they use that to kind of, oh, see, you don't really know anything. Well, if I had just a second to kind of settle in,
Yeah.
and so that's what I try to do with my students, try to create a safe space first. And so that's how I would say those few people in my life really left an impression. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I'd
I
say.
love that, man. And I love how it's cool because in the evolution of going through the education system, you have like middle school, which for me was like fifth grade to eighth grade, and then high
Yeah,
school, is ninth grade to 12th grade, and then college, it's, freshman, sophomore, senior. And each kind of pocket, each phase, you start off as the kid who's like looking up to the older people. And then as years go by, you're the mentor that people are looking up to, and then it switches and you're now the young kid, and then you're looking up to people, and then you're able to be the mentor, and it's this beautiful almost progression of, because I remember loving being the young one, and because you're trying
mm-hmm.
to, it's like you're impressing big brothers, and I never had
Mm-hmm.
brothers or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And but you're it's not all on you, and you're growing and you're learning, but you're also picking what works and what doesn't work. And then you get to this state where almost without intention, you're like, now people look up to you just at that stage because of age, and now you get to step into that leadership role, which is really cool. So like all those mentors who have paved such a road for you, now you are just fully stepping into, like you were even talking about, using the meditation from your mentor, and now you're using and becoming a mentor for people. And it's the most beautiful thing. I think it's I just I asked that because I think the idea of mentors, and there are mentorship programs for that you can do for, young kids going through the school system in low socioeconomic areas or just anywhere. And I think having like a true real mentor is so rare in this world, and it's just really cool to see, to just hear that you've had mentors, and then just because you're a mentor to me, and to see that, and I just wanted to acknowledge you for that. And I think it's so beautiful. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you, man. I thank you for saying that. And again, it's just to always recognize that that young person in my student, that person who first fell in love with acting. Maybe that's what it is. I try to relate to that person, the person who just was like, I love acting for what it is, not like trying to be famous, not trying to do anything with craft or technicalities. I really want to, like, find that again with them. And
Yeah.
there are some students that are so guarded up in the beginning, they're like, I don't even know, I can't even get back to that place. And then there's other places that they're like, that's where they are, it's just raw. And so all my job really is to like nurture that, and
Mhm.
that's what I really strive to do. um
Mhm.
and when students are like, ooh, I'm hungry for more, I'm like, all right, let's go to that
Yeah.
next level. I
Yeah.
love it too, so yeah.
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 Amazing, bro. Well, there's again so much I could dive deep with you, but we're going to slowly start to wrap it up. So now you don't have to, because I know sometimes talking about the future can be, it's challenging trying like speaking it into, because you're like, we're manifesting, we're speaking into existence. But sometimes, especially as actors, it's like many times we say, oh yeah, I got this supporting role in this thing where I was a background here. So like keep an eye out for me and then you're cut from it. So like we experienced that enough times to realize that maybe we don't talk about it before it manifests physically.
Hmm.
But let's just say if you had a vision board or if you had a mood board, just
Yeah.
what would that look like for you moving forward in this life?
Yeah. So yeah, I love everything you're saying. I'm not afraid to say things like that, right? Like dreams and goals.
Mm-hmm.
I've also just been in this business long enough to know that like, whatever your plan is, God or the universe has a different one,
Yeah.
And so I think in the past I've really beaten myself up for admitting plans and I've been like, God, why did you say that? Or, you're so stupid for even thinking that. Um, I feel like right now in this season of my life, like I'm okay to see whatever happens, and I
Mm-hmm.
really am loving life and loving the
Mm-hmm.
turns and the twists and the opportunities. But that being said, like I mentioned to you, I'm in a very
Yeah.
happy relationship,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking obviously I'm leaning in that next step,
Mm-hmm.
to now be part of someone else's life much more deeply. And so that's something that's like been weighing heavy on my heart recently. I'm in a
Mm-hmm.
giddy place. And then obviously like career and for my acting, there are so many hurdles or not hurdles, but posts along the way that I still want to, reach or goalposts, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would love to get another crack at a series. We've spoken now already about writing and producing. That's been something that's got a couple of scripts like I've told you about that are
Mm-hmm.
in motion right now and trying to like get that off the ground.
Yeah.
Um, the business, it's eventually for the business, I want to do more in-person events. I want to, potentially retreats. And I mean, I like the cool thing about the business again too. It's like wherever your imagination wants to take
Mm-hmm.
it. And so I'm like almost sometimes I beat myself up about like, God, imagine bigger or like, get
Yeah.
to it faster. And it's like, it's like every day I'm just like kind of listening. I'm listening to
Mm-hmm.
you and what you're doing. I'm listening to other students and what they're doing, other, people that I look up to on socials, and I'm like, cool. How can I incorporate that for my students? Um, so that would be the long term goal for the modern actors. Potentially get more coaches, start training some other students. And then having maybe people like yourself come on and speak to each other. Like, and I just
Mm-hmm.
that's really where I want. I want to see like how far I can really
Yeah.
take it. Um, that's where I would say like right now I guess I don't know. I feel bad saying like I don't have like a specific goal that I'm going for. I really am in a place of like just letting it happen as it comes,
Yeah.
Um, God, I feel like that's just not a good answer,
That's
Andrew.
a
I feel like I should
beautiful.
have.
That's
I don't
I
know. I
love
feel
it.
like I should
I
have
love it.
like. I feel like I should have like. There's the dartboard. That's what I'm going for. I just
Yeah.
again, it's like I've now been in the business 11 years. Like I've done all the business plans. I've thrown the dart on. I've
Mm-hmm.
gone out to every audition, and again, it doesn't turn out that way. So I'm now
Mm-hmm.
just in a place of like, yeah, like as long as I feel good, as long as I'm happy, as long as I'm living my truth, as long as I'm connecting, like I truly believe that God's going to take me in the direction that I'm supposed to
Yeah.
go in. And so I'm just on for the ride right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always, I think you know me enough now to like, I'm always trying to like keep some direction, of course,
Yeah.
to the ship as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I love that,
yeah.
man. I love that. Now I got a couple of final cues. This is like kind of a rapid
Okay.
fire-ish kind
Okay.
of questions, but you can take your time with it. All right. What's your go-to comfort film?
Oh God.
Mm,
Go-to comfort film. I don't know why, but Goodwill Hunting just kind of popped into my
ooh,
head. Yeah, yeah. I
it's
love
not
me
good.
some Goodwill Hunting. I mean, like,
Obsessed.
right, like, yeah, I would probably say Goodwill Hunting. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I that movie changed my life. Like I told my buddy when I was in high school, I was like, "Yo, we're gonna be like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and we're gonna write our own thing." And we tried to do that when I graduated college, and I was so inspired by their story. And I was in college, and I didn't like reading at the time, so I just I wrote like a paper on. It was kind of like why movies are better than books, which is like so backwards because everyone says books are better than movies, and now I kind of agree. But I wrote a paper on Goodwill Hunting and the cinema, beautiful, just everything about that film, and I just love it so much. And I don't want to again, we don't want to take up too much time here, but I know you have worked in the same space as Mr. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. So do you have anything to add to share?
uh, that when I went for the test deal, this is a funny story. When I went for the test, and so obviously you now know the steps in an audition, right? You start with the
Mm,
pre-read, you get to maybe the callback with the casting director finally, then maybe there's a director. Once I got to after the producer session, you go to the chemistry read, you get to the test. Now it's just you and maybe another actor. So I've auditioned now for Incorporated. It's like almost a month with this show, and now I'm at CBS Studios in one of their large theaters, and the lights are so bright on me, but all I could think about was like Matty D and Ben Affleck are in there. You gotta freaking blow the socks off this room. And
mm,
I was like, let's go.
mm.
I want to tell you, Andrew, I gave the best performance of my life
Yes.
by
Yes.
and then come to find out, I don't even know if they were in there. But it was okay. It was like knowing the fact that they watched the video. I mean, at the end of the day, they had to
Hmm.
put their final yes on me. And again,
Hmm.
talk about a vote of confidence moving forward from that
Yeah.
was huge for me. Like I needed that. But I will say that like what I loved is that they gave an unknown actor a shot.
Yeah.
And again, we talk about mentors and people dropping the ladder down for the next person. I've also tried to emulate what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like they
Hmm.
were already at the top of the mountain, and they were like, let's just give this up and coming actor a chance.
Hmm.
And I can't be more grateful for that opportunity. Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, do you have any actors or creators who have inspired you along the way, whether that was when you were really young and you saw that like Superman was your guy, or like, did you have any actors specifically that you really, even today, but maybe when you were younger, but just in general, any actors or
You
creatives
know,
in the space?
who I really vibe with is Ethan Hawke. I love
Mm,
Ethan Hawke. There's something about Ethan Hawke's rawness. There's something about his energy, but also the sensitivity that I just really relate to. I mean, and obviously now I know like, he's got some videos that are viral now, and obviously the way he talks about the art is just the most beautiful thing.
yeah.
But even before that, yeah, like even before that, I just was like there was always like an attraction to, the kind of acting that he was giving, the kind of
Mm,
person that he was. And I think I've always been inspired by those like non-traditional leading actors like a Ethan, like a Ed Norton, like an Oscar Isaac. Um, yeah, again,
hmm.
maybe not the guys you would have looked at to be like, oh yeah, you're gonna be the star, you're the Brad Pitt of our class, and you're gonna be,
Right.
we're always gonna put you in. I've always looked at the other guy who was like, I got something to prove,
Hmm.
and I know there's some female actresses like that too, maybe like a Natalie Portman or just someone that's like, all right, I'm in it to win it, and that's
Yeah.
something that's always attracted me. Um, I'm a huge fan of Rocky, and Sylvester Stallone's
Hmm.
story always like
Yeah.
hit me to my heart. I was like, that's just the coolest thing ever. This
Hmm.
person that people have counted out has become, you know,
Hmm.
just infamous. And I've
Yeah.
always been inspired by stories like that.
Yeah, man. Love a good underdog always.
You
All
love
right.
it. That's it. It's the underdog. Exactly. Right.
Now, where would you say you draw not the most inspiration from, but in life, where have you found that you have drawn inspiration, whether that's, being outside of nature in a meditation, a breathwork session, and watching a film, watching a theater performance, just in reflecting in life, where have you found that you've kind of drawn the most inspiration from?
Mm. Oh, that's a great question. I think obviously nature is one of them, but I really am a huge fan of taking in different types of art, taking in, not even just art on the wall, but sculptures. I really do find a lot from, that from museums, you know what I mean? Just like kind of like surrounding myself in a place that is artistic, that has that creativity in its bones. So that's been something that I always will go to is like my retreat is like taking a day to kind of go to visit a new museum. But obviously taking in nature has been huge too. The ocean is the best place for me to kind of cleanse and recharge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful, man. Now, you're in the space of being a storyteller. And sometimes it's not that I have resistance. I don't have resistance saying I'm an actor, but I fall in love with the idea of saying I'm a storyteller. And storyteller is writer. It's any person in the space of in like the organism of making a film. Like we're all storytellers in their own way. In your like own words, what do you think? Like, what is the power of storytelling to you? Like, what is storytelling capable of? What does storytelling just mean to you?
I think storytelling is telling someone's truth. Storytelling for me is like is again speaking to that person that feels um, marginalized, feels not being heard or seen, and being able to draw that story out and bring it main stage, or bring it in front of people that bring it in front of a group of people that wouldn't have otherwise known that story. I mean, I know that's been my reason of getting into acting in the first place, was to uncover stories that aren't so beautiful look at, sexy, and try to bring that to the forefront. So that's what storytelling has always been to me, is like, how can we communicate and connect groups of people through these human truths, or through these kind of like yeah, just like stories that we haven't necessarily heard before, things like that. That's
That's
always been
yeah.
my definition of storytelling. Yeah.
Absolutely. Amazing, man. Amazing. Dude, I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful to have you on
Yeah.
here today. Now before we let you go, just let the audience know where they can find you, where they can support you, where they can hear if they're an up and coming actor. Oh, wait. Last question. Last question.
Yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
forgot it.
Hit me.
Now, friends, like Eddie's about to give his information on how to, follow and support the modern actor. You follow him on Instagram.
Mhm.
So much guidance, so much wisdom, so many tidbits of information from him, but also that he shares about from other actors and creatives in the space. Just so much knowledge. But Eddie, if you had to give one piece of advice to an up and coming actor, I know, dude. I know. I'm really throwing you here because there's so much, and you've done so much and shared so much over the years. But if you had to choose one, what would you say to an up and coming actor?
Listen to your voice. Listen to that inner voice that is telling you to keep going. You gotta listen to that voice. I would say that's what drove me here, and that's where I've always tried to turn that on the most.
Mm-hmm.
When it sounds like it's quiet, when other people are telling you what's what, listen to your voice. Listen to that inner child. I go back to, who was the kid that got into acting in the first place? Invite that person back into the creative process. When things feel stale, bring that guy back in, that young girl back into the process. I promise you, it'll always be um, helpful. It'll always be the best thing you could do for your audition, the best thing you could do for a decision you have to make. Talk to that person again. I think that's what I would say. Yeah.
Wow. It's a great answer. It's a great answer. All right, now, Eddie, I'll just let the audience know where they can find you, where they can support you on this journey. Yeah.
So guys, yeah, for more practical tips, suggestions, words of advice, you can follow me on Instagram at the modern actor underscore. I'm also on Twitter at actor Eddie Ramos. I can also be found on Letterboxd. Now I have a Letterboxd at the modern
Yes.
actor. Um, and if you are ever interested in coaching, you can always shoot me a DM on Instagram at the modern actor, or on the website, the hyphen modern hyphen actor.com. So, and I'll give Andrew all that information so he can share that with you guys also.
Absolutely. We'll share it in the show notes. All right, my
Sweet.
brother, dude. Appreciate you
Dude,
so much. Keep doing your thing. Keep shining your light. Such an honor, man.
likewise, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Always. Peace.
Dude, dude.